So I've talked about the new Road and Street Glide quite a bit and the changes that they've put in, from the new fairing, the new headlight, back to the rear fender, the tank, and pretty much everything in between. But today I want to show you 7 of the biggest small changes that they've made. Things you probably wouldn't necessarily think about, but these things actually add up to make quite a difference, especially compared to their older models. So everything, let's say, from 14 up until 23. Those are the things that I really want to focus on today. And I'd love to hear if there's any more that you think that I actually missed, because I was really combing over the bike trying to pick out certain things that, you know, are just these little tiny changes, right? Just small things that you don't really pay that much attention to. So let me know after the video if you have found any of those other little things like that. And of course, if you like what I do, consider subscribing. Let's go and get into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is actually a pretty significant one when you consider what we had before, and that is the gear indicator. Now on the older bikes, and what I mean by older is literally like 23s, have the same feature, and they did for a while. But on your road glides, street glides, limiteds, all of that, your cluster, of course, was separate. So on the road glides specifically, it was in between the risers. Then, of course, you had 4 gauges across the batwing fairing with the Boom GTS in the middle. Now, I believe the gear indicator did come up on the Boom GTS. I didn't have that system for the last, I don't know, year, maybe a little bit over a year when I changed it out at Audio Evolution. So there could be a chance there that it was on the Boom GTS. And actually, I think it was, and it was a little bit more, bold and pronounced. I don't ever remember looking at that, though, to be quite honest with you. But on the old clusters and in the dash, you would basically just have a little digital number that would show you what gear you're in. But when you would go to pull in the clutch, your gear indicator would go away. Now, inevitably, there's going to be somebody that comes in here and says, "Brother, you should learn how to ride your bike, brother." And while I understand what you're saying, at the same time, if you're riding in a gear for a while, you thought you were in 4th or 5th or whatever, you go to make a turn, look down, now it is clearly legible, right? It can be seen at any time of day. You don't have to squint to see it or anything like that. And of course, when you pull the clutch in now, the gear indicator doesn't go away. This is a nice little feature that Indian has been putting on their motorcycles now for some time, at least on their baggers, right? So anything with the Ride Command essentially has had this feature for a while, and I'm really glad that Harley added it. It's a small one, but again, it's one that just adds a little bit more convenience when you're riding and switching gears. Now the next one I want to talk about is more of an aesthetic difference than anything functional, but it actually does make quite a bit of difference, I think, and that is the horn placement. So on the older bikes, you actually had 2 cylinders there, and in between that was your horn, and your coil was tucked up kind of under the tank, and it just had a really odd shape to it. Now you could of course replace this with a Harley one or any number of aftermarket ones, but the OEM one actually had the shape of like a case you would pop open and throw a pack of cigs or something like that in there, like a little dry storage case or something like that. It was maybe a little bit unnecessarily long and just did not have any kind of appeal to it whatsoever. Now, eventually over time, like me, I just kind of get used to it. It's no big deal, but now they have placed the horn down under the cooler on the left-hand side. There's no kind of cover on it or anything like that anymore, and it kind of hits the ground, and you got some reverb, so it may even accentuate the sound of the horn. Might be a little bit louder now even, so that's kind of cool. But now it's actually replaced by the coil. More of a clean look, first of all, but a slightly custom look from the factory. Definitely looks better than what they had before, though. I think a lot of people are going to appreciate this next one. It is just placed so much better, so much more thought is actually put into it, and that is the placement of your high beam indicator. Now before, on the clutch side, you had your switch housing there, of course, and then up at the top right was actually where your high beams was, and that's how you'd flash your high beams and all that. Well, if you had the clutch pulled in and you have smaller hands, I don't know, you would have to have a pretty freaking strong reach in order to hit that thing if you needed to flash somebody to go, or that's most of the time when I would actually use this, or when it would be inconvenient. So typically, just kind of You know, clutch pulled in, use your hand, you know, go, whatever. But now they actually placed it on the back of the switch housing. Now, clutch pulled in, use your index finger, hit that little button. You can flash them to go ahead and go, give them the right of way, whatever you want to do. It's so much more conveniently placed now. Staying with the switches here for a minute, you now have this little joystick that's right in the middle of your options button, and you have this on both sides. So if you want to turn your music up and down, if you want to, you know, maybe change the station or change the song, if you want to cycle through your screens and your options and all of that kind of stuff, you don't really have to reach over. So you have, you know, 4 directionals that will actually, you know, allow you to just individually press them. But now in the middle of that, you have a joystick. It's this little raised area. And so that'll allow you to kind of push over and never really have to move your hand actually physically over to, let's say, the right hand side. You just hit that little knob over, and that's going to allow you to do everything you need to do. And like I said, just conveniently keep your hand there. And one more thing before we get off the switches is we actually have a pause button now. Now I was really happy when I upgraded my radio last year because I had a actual pause button, and this was so freaking annoying. I don't know how they missed this for so long. There may have been some workaround that I just never found for this, but anytime I needed to just turn my music down for a while, you know, I would just have to, you know, actually turn it all the way down. So you stop at a, you know, a light with one of your buddies, you want to talk about something, and you just kind of turn it all the way down before you can actually hear what that person is saying. Now, hit the pause button. Simple as that. Really convenient change. But if you rode any of the older models, you know how convenient this is now. And a lot of this stuff is convenience based, and you may not even think about it. If a 24 is like your first ever road or street glide, you may be like, oh yeah, this is the way it's always been. This is fantastic. But really, a lot of these changes, small, but they add up to be a much more convenient and better looking motorcycle. Now here's one that some of you may have had in the older model, and that is TPMS. But if you didn't have TPMS, and trust me, there was bikes made all the way up until, I mean, hell, RDRS has pretty much been an option all the way up until 23. So I guess there's a possibility that you had a 22 or 23 Road Glide and still did not have this feature, and that is TPMS. I had a 19 Street Glide and a 20 Road Glide, and I can't tell you how inconvenient it is to, you know, remove a bag in order to simply check your tire pressure. So there's times where I would run that thing way longer than what I should have, but it was just, like I said, super inconvenient. But now you can just go to your screen and check. Hell, you can have it as one of your widgets, and it stays on the home screen, so you ain't even got to flip through anything. If you need to put air in your tires now, it is so convenient and easy to just check them right there on the screen. Now this next one is so convenient. No matter if you have a street or a road glide, I think a little bit more for the road glide riders, but regardless, we now actually have compartments that are usable. Now on the street glide, you now have a little compartment up under the screen, and you can plug your phone in right there. It's a little tray. I think it'll hold up to like 3 pounds or something like that. But very convenient. You plug your phone in right there, and boom, you can forget about it. Throw your keys in there, any number of things, right? It's going to fit quite a bit. And on the Road Glide, our 2 little pockets are no longer just literally, you know, little pockets that are just kind of afterthoughts. They actually extended those much further down in the fairing. Now on the right hand side on the Road Glide, that's where your USB Type-C is. By the way, that's one more little convenient thing, is having USB Type-C. But anyways, you can, you know, put your phone down in there if you want to, keys, any number of things, right? But what's cool is that you can actually fit an entire water bottle down in these little compartments now. You can fit a GoPro, you can fit your wallet, you know, you fit your wallet and something else in there. That's normally what I do. I keep my wallet on the left-hand side, and then, you know, I have on the right-hand side phone or whatever else. I mean, you actually have quite a bit of storage there, much more convenient. If you're on the road and you want to open it up, if you don't have a drink holder or anything like that, you can grab a water bottle out of there, flip your helmet up, and, you know, take a sip of water if you want to. I mean, it's really, like I said, one of those little convenient things. Much more convenient on the road glide than the street glide, but that's the nature of it because of the type of fairing that you have on the road versus the street glide. Still, it's nice that we have actual usable compartments now. Now, here's one thing that came in handy right off the rip. I was on the track with the Road Glide ST. Fantastic motorcycle, right? Kyle Wyman, all these guys, just really awesome experience. Well, they were teaching us how they, take corners, trail braking, all of that kind of stuff. So I'm like, okay, well, I know, I have smaller hands, so I know that, staying on those brakes going into the corner might be a little bit of an issue. And he's like, yeah, just, use your adjustable brake lever and bring it closer to the grip. I was like, oh, that's fantastic. So there you go. That's the next one, having an adjustable brake lever. They kind of had a one size fit all before with the clutch and the brake lever. And so I would imagine, if you had to get on those brakes super quickly, that you had a tendency to probably overexert or brake at times. Now, of course, that is more maybe of a training thing, having those brakes ready or covering the brakes anyways. Brake control, of course, part of training and all of that. But at the same time, knowing that it is a little bit closer and it could just fit your hand better. Now, one thing I really wish they would have done, which I think would have been even more beneficial probably, is put an adjustable clutch lever. Because now that we have that gear indicator that doesn't go away when you pull on the clutch, you now have a wire and electronics that are attached to that. So your adjustable brake and clutch levers, or especially your adjustable clutch lever now, nobody really has them at this point of me making this video. And trust me, I keep checking because I like to have way less room between the grip and the friction zone than what they give you stock. It's a little bit less than what you'll find on the hydraulic clutches, but if you have any kind of issues in your hand, carpal tunnel, arthritis, anything like that, you know what I'm talking about. Having your hand fully extended like that for any period of time, any length of time, is super uncomfortable. So I like to have mine where it'll engage super quick. So I use the Oberon clutches from Hog Leverage. But until somebody makes one that will work with the electronics, unfortunately adjustable levers right now are just something you can't put on these bikes. So it would have been really nice if Harley would have went ahead and put that in there and bring that a little bit closer. I probably would have thought that would have been more beneficial, but I guess they decided they didn't want to do that. But at least we do have the brake lever now. Maybe in a year or two, the clutch will actually be adjustable as well. And the last thing I want to talk about is our ability to move air in or around us has returned. Now, before we had the button, right, in the dash, and you push it in, and most of the time it would stick, or most of the time you'd keep it open either way. So Harley decided, hey, why are we putting this here? Most people are just keeping it open. We'll take it off the bikes. I think they made that decision in like 2022 or something, maybe 21. So anyways, they kind of just got rid of it. Well, now they have a lever. So you just move that up and down. You want to close air off, you want to open it up, you can do that. No more sticking button or anything like that. So that's made a return in a much better and cleaner way. And also having the ability to move the little side deflectors, right? So you can now open those up to allow air to come in around you, or close them off to divert the air just a little bit. So like I said, if you were looking for some massive change in the bikes in this specific video, I already have a video dedicated to that. This is all about the small little things that riders can appreciate, especially coming from those older models. I'd love to hear about any of the little maybe secrets or little things that you found that have changed on the bikes that you think is significant, maybe better or worse. Let me know down below. Of course, if you like what I do, consider subscribing, and also consider joining the Shot Squad right here or over on Patreon. Big thanks. See you in the next one. And as always, hold them down.